Sweet gaming news. Yeah, so no big acquisitions this year. I mean, this week.
this week. No big acquisitions in the last 144 hours. You can confirm.
Yeah, I mean, geez, no big next gen console news during this week as well. So it's like can actually breathe this week. So
but there's some news.
Firstly, season 2 of Fall Guys drops this coming week.
That's exciting.
It's landing on October 8th. They showed it off briefly at the Gamescom thing with Jeff Keighley. It's like it's inspired by the Middle Ages. So you've got things like drawbridges and giant swinging axes and siege ramps and I guess the different look to Big Eaters.
Yeah.
And then obviously costumes that are like knights and Vikings and wizards and all that stuff. So it looks cool. That's enough
awesome.
for me to hop back in and be like, because I haven't played Fall Guys in a while. So
yeah. I mean, I've not stopped playing it. I put a couple of hours in every week, and it's a good time. It's really that game. That game has been one of my biggest surprises this year. As well.
Definitely, yeah. This year it's up there as like the game that took and also like grabbed the cultural like conversation for a very longer than I expected actually. So yeah. There's a new character coming to Smash.
Oh, good lord. Who do you think it is?
He's from Minecraft.
He's blocky. That's right, it's Steve.
It's Steve from Minecraft. Hey.
I laughed because to me, I just imagine being Sakurai. Okay, you open up your emails on any given day and it's just thousands of requests like, hey man, could you put in, I don't know, like some Mario character, whatever, some Nintendo franchise character or someone from that sort of, library of characters. Yeah. And he just closed all of them and said, you know what? Oh, here's an email from my man, Phil Spencer. Oh, okay, dude.
We're just going to pop this guy in there.
You want Steve in there. Cool, man. Who got it? Got you, fam. Look, all jokes aside, I think it makes sense to have Minecraft Steve in there. I mean, Minecraft is like its own beast.
Yeah.
It's got... Yeah. Like it came out like 10 years ago, maybe more, maybe less. I don't know.
And it's still more now. I actually can't remember like when the Java version versus the Windows version versus all of that shit.
That game just has millions upon millions of people still playing it on every platform, from PC to Switch to mobile. So like, why not? Like, Minecraft Steve is a very iconic character, and I think it, from the little that they've shown, they're going to have that signature Smash where like they contextualize things from Minecraft in this fighting game, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Apparently,
my 2 minute
Minecraft
blurb.
Steve has been... Well, Nintendo's been talking about adding Steve to Smash for 5 years.
Yeah, look, it's funny because when I was trying to find the trailer, the reveal trailer, so the direct happened, and I was like, oh, okay, it's Steve, but like I only saw half the trailer. Let me go look it up on YouTube. There were fan mock trailers from like 2012, 2013.
Oh, hectic.
Yeah, so like fans have been, well, not all fans, but a lot of people have been like, please bring us Minecraft Steve,
Give us Steve. There's a GIF that came out of there where it's just like I don't know if it's the creeper, but it's the like black version of like the bad guy. I don't know.
It's terrifying.
And he's just peering into the box where Snake is, and it's like, your Snake is fucked.
I saw that. Yeah, Snake
is dead.
I think, is that Enderman? I don't know.
I don't know the name, but it made me laugh. It gave me the giggle.
Gave you a good lol.
Gave me a good lol, yeah. So yeah, that's Smash.
That happened. Do you want to talk about
in Smash?
You want to talk about the new Peter Parker?
Oh right, yeah, that happened.
And Spider-Man.
I
almost
forgot about that.
Weird. Look. So just quick overview. The Spider-Man, Marvel Spider-Man on PS4 is coming to PS5 as a remaster, and
which you can't buy on its own. You can only buy it through Miles Morales, which is.
I mean, that's a story in itself, but they recast the Peter Parker model character, so the model in game looks completely different. It's not even remotely similar.
He looks like Tom Holland. Like
he looks so much like Tom Holland.
Like Insomnia came out and said, because they've kept the same voice actor, Yuri Lowenthal, and they were basically like, for the next gen, we wanted to, up the connection between the voice capture and the motion capture. So Yuri Lowenthal obviously isn't the model for the in-game Peter Parker because he's much older than the character is meant to be.
Yeah.
And Insomniac is basically saying that they ran into some issues to increase the fidelity of the motion capture going forward with what they had. So they just recast the actor because he better matched the facial movements, better matched Yuri Lowenthal's. So the audio seems like it's coming through a bit better. But
yeah.
I mean,
This dude
sure,
looks a lot like Tom Holland.
he looks a lot like Tom Holland. Like, I'm not even like, and considering Sony, is behind this as well, I don't put it past them to be like, man, we should make this guy look sort of more like, the kid who's portraying Spider-Man in the movies. So
Yeah. Well, I think that's what. Look, I don't care that he looks like Tom Holland. Like, whatever.
No, not at all.
But
I dig Tom Holland. He's cool.
Yeah. But just the fact that the Peter Parker you're playing in this game is like mid-20s. And like the Peter Parker we had in the PS4 game looked the part. This Tom Holland dude, like Tom Holland in the MCU is meant to be like in high school. And he looks it. Like Tom Holland does look like he came out of high school,
Yeah.
Like he's a young actor. It's just weird looking at the remastered trailer. It's like, this is a 16-year-old, like busy doing shit in a science lab coat. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that is the thing that sticks out for me. Like, I understand the reasoning, and I don't have such a huge attachment to the previous model of Peter Parker, but it's just, it really does look out of place. Like, he looks too young. And I think that's really going to be driven home when you get the scenes between Peter and MJ, who the model hasn't changed. So MJ still looks like mid-20s, and now
MJ's a cradle snatcher.
Yeah, it's like she could be his babysitter. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's, I get it, but I think it will take some adjusting to. That said, that they did show off 60 frame per second gameplay of the remaster with all new, like, they've got like assets and ray tracing, and thing looks pretty slick.
It looks really good. Yeah. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Very excited for the remaster. It's just that they've explained that change, but it looks so jarring to me.
Yeah,
look, we'll get over it. With the next
Yeah.
Spider-Man, it'll just be what it is.
It just caught me off guard because I watched the trailer as soon as it came out, and when I saw Peter, I was like, something feels off about him. Like, I'm just like, I played this game like a year and a bit, and I was just like, something feels wrong. And then I saw people going like, whoa, he's different. I was like, okay, it's not just me then. It's not like I've forgotten what this actor looked like.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah. Anyway, Cyberpunk 2077.
Doing some good old crunch.
Yep. The games industry is the games industry, and crunch, like most software development jobs, crunch seemingly is inevitable. I mean, I'm in that industry. I can tell you that. Crunch is definitely a result of poor management in most cases. But in some cases, it is somewhat unavoidable because of the nature of software, especially, I think, with games, because that's more of an artistic means of software development. But listen, I've spoken to Neelan, our friend who works at Naughty Dog, and we had some interesting conversations about crunch, because Naughty Dog, obviously, they got a lot of flack for crunch on Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us 2, and the way it's reported is very black and white in a way. It's like, yes, crunch is bad.
Yeah,
crunch is definitely bad. It can seriously affect your mental health, your physical health, relationships, everything, especially when it's mandated by the studios, which it very, studios will come in and say, we don't force it. They do.
Even if they don't, like, in terms of just office culture, like,
yes,
can you imagine you chilling at home on the weekend and all your other colleagues at the office, they're gonna hate you.
They'll hate you, and you will likely be passed up for contract renewals. So, like,
exactly,
it's like, you don't have to crunch, but start looking for a new job type of thing. So, but at the same time, in my experience, there are ways to manage crunch. Like you will have instances where maybe you'll be crunching for a few weeks at a time. But then a good company or a good manager will understand that you need adequate rest. So you will get additional days off that you can take immediately after the crunch period, some sort of compensation that is in line with the toll that the crunch takes physically on yourself, not from a financial standpoint.
Yeah.
And that, from my discussions with Neelan, is kind of how Naughty Dog has handled it. He's always said, yes, we do have crunch, but he's never spoken about it to me in a way that seems like Naughty Dog doesn't give them the time to recuperate afterwards. Obviously, that works for some people, and for some people it doesn't.
It doesn't, yeah.
And a good manager will be able to manage both of those scenarios, So going back to Cyberpunk, basically the studio says that they are doing mandatory crunch, basically six day weeks leading up to launch as they get this game ready to get out the door. Reporter Jason Try says that it's not actually just this period, that some developers have been crunching for over a year now, which is well beyond the...
That's wild.
Yeah, crunch should be at most like a month, in my view. I mean, I've crunched for a month and I feel like I want to die afterwards. So a year just sounds like it is doing irreparable harm to you in some way.
Yeah.
Whether you manage it, whether you deal with the stress a bit better or not, I think in some way or another you are being damaged for a video game. So I'm not happy to hear about that. But because the studio is in Poland, the developers are being financially compensated because it is written into their labor law that you have to be.
Yeah.
Which is, I will tell you, a very, very, very big exception to how it works elsewhere. I don't get paid overtime. For any overtime I do. Software
likewise.
Developers in general do not get paid overtime. In America, they definitely do not. But again, like studios on an individual basis can incentivize people financially, based on how they decide to manage crunch. But it is more the exception than the rule. So, it's a weird thing. It's like, yes, they're being compensated. Yes, it's 6 day weeks, so they're still getting 1 day off, but it is mandatory. So that developers don't really have a choice.
Don't have a choice, yeah.
And if it's really affecting them from a physical and mental standpoint, like they don't have, a way to get out of that. So, yeah, I think basically what I'm trying to say is like crunch isn't as black and white as a lot of reporting leads you to believe. And that I've come to learn over time, because I used to think it was very black and white. But I think there should be better standards industry-wide on how it's managed post and, pre-crunch periods, and what sort of compensation there is. And that is something that will take a long time to kind of like worm its way in, because studios do often just force people to crunch for months on end. And, you're going from one crunch period to another. It's just never ending. And that is more the norm than you think it is. So, yeah.
Well, look, on that, so... I do agree with you that like crunch isn't just black and white. I mean, and this is a good example of, like you've just said, Cyberpunk is still like it's coming out in November. It's the final stretch. They're not working 7 day weeks. Like they still have a day off, which is still like cool. That's okay, and they are being financially compensated. But like that is the exception. Like not a lot of people have that luxury. And I think just from my experience, like, well, not my experience, but one thing that really stood out to me with Naughty Dog, for example, you mentioned Neelan. I mean, we had him on the podcast in December. He was visiting South Africa. And let's just remember, The Last of Us 2 is out, due in April.
Yeah.
Was it April, May? And we were like, that's weird. Like, this is surely the time you would crunch.
Well, at that point, when he was visiting us, it was still coming out in February. It hadn't been delayed yet.
Yes, that's true, yeah. Okay, so we're like, but surely this is like your crunch time. And he was like, no, the whole studio is closed for like 2 weeks because it's Christmas. And I was like, that's kind of interesting, because I don't think a lot of studios would do that. So like there's a lot of nuance between different studios and how they manage it. And that to me, I was like, oh, like I know you guys have to work hard, but they actually gave you guys leave despite the game coming out in like 2-3 months, which is quite random.
Yeah, I was
feel.
also shocked at that time because I'd seen him that year, or it was last year. I'd seen him in June, and in June he was telling me at the time then they were like aiming to be wrapped up with most work before the December holidays so that they, would be set for February when it was meant to launch. And so many things can change between then and December. So the fact that he was still able to travel, I mean, I assume maybe some people were still doing some work
some
on
people
then.
probably stayed, yeah.
But I'm 100% with you. I would have thought, especially when at that point the studio must have known that February wasn't going to be feasible.
It's not going to be a thing.
So for again, this is where it becomes touchy. It's like we are praising a studio for just granting leave to an employee, which is a employment right. Like that's what it is. But I know from his standpoint and from mine that sometimes taking leave when you want is a very difficult thing when software is completely, in flux and needs hands-on at all times. So, I don't know. Again, I think what you're saying is right. There just needs to be a bit more nuance in the conversations we have about crunch. And yes, it is a bad thing that studios should always try to avoid. Because at the end of the day, if you can avoid it, that is the best case scenario. But I think in the cases, as we work to that future, or as we start realizing the effects it has on employees, companies or employees should force better rules around what the crunch is, like how long periods can go on for at a time, what you're compensated for, and that should be in sort of like employment contracts to me.
Yeah.
Or as it is in Poland, just, governed by actual fucking labor law. Like governments should not allow companies to do this.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. No game is worth the mental health of its employees, and that's it. That's all.
Yeah.
That's my opinion on the entire thing.
But they crunching. I think just last thing on this, I think why it's such a big deal is that they came out last year. I think they said, CD Projekt Red said that there won't be crunch for Cyberpunk, and they've since doubled back. And look, in their defense, like I will never say crunch is a good thing, but like COVID did happen.
Yeah.
And like it's a reality. It's completely unexpected. And I mean, I don't know if it's a thing that they can hide behind, but like, listen, a lot of people did not plan for this. No one planned for it. So
I think a studio coming out and acknowledging that crunch is bad and saying that they are looking at ways to try and never do it again is a very good first step.
Yeah.
Because that again is the exception. I can't name another studio that has come out and said we aren't doing that, but I can name multiple studios who've come out and defended crunch. Yeah. So I'll give CD Projekt Red props for that, but it is something that needs to be fixed.
Look, it's not right by any means, but it's just
And again, I don't think it's something that will go away. Anyone who works in software development, this is part of the industry, and I hate it. And the more I start realizing it, I wonder if I made the right decision going into software development. But I've definitely already found instances where it is managed better in some places than others, and I guess you just need to look for the places that
right place,
that acknowledge that you are a human and that you have limitations physically and mentally, and if companies can work around that, then it's fine.
I mean, I think that doesn't even just apply to software development. I can tell you, I mean, I'm at an agency now, and my company are very good at not doing overtime. Like, look, overtime does happen every now and then purely because sometimes you can't predict certain things. But I've heard horror stories from people who have joined the agency, people who I work with saying like, oh, their previous agency, it was very common to just be called in on a Saturday and just work the whole weekend for no compensation. And I can tell you, I've not worked a single weekend, for example. And I work like a half an hour to an hour overtime here and there, but it's really like it's managed completely in a way that I know a lot of other agencies don't do. And I'm just very lucky to be at a company where the two founders are very strict about we don't want to push this culture of like pushing yourself till you die.
But you see,
basically.
that's what it is, and that's
It's an exception, yeah.
yeah. It's there are those companies out there, and I'm not the thing that irritates me the most is whenever there's these stories like this, people just go, "We'll just find another job." It's like the world
Okay.
doesn't work like that, especially now in a year where there's a pandemic and like everyone's losing their jobs. Like the world just doesn't work like that.
No.
So like, yes, you should fight for better rights within your company, and if you can't, and it's not working for you, at the end of the day, you need to make a change that makes sense to you. But if this is a systemic problem across the industry, what are you going to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you've
just
dedicated
moved to
your
another
life to this
company
craft. You can't go anywhere where it's just a problem. So it should be called out, and it's good that it is being called out. But I also acknowledge that the way it's being called out is very black and white now, and lacks a lot of the nuance, around these issues. And if they're ever going to be conversations to actually get to a point where things are like put in place on an industry-wide basis, there needs to be more nuanced conversations around what crunch is. So
yeah. Well, that's our
that.
crunch hour conversation.
Crunch hour conversation.
Some quick news before we fly off to questions. Farmville finally dies in 2020.
Oh, right. Yeah, that happened this week. Damn.
I can't believe that. I'm like, what? It's not a thing of like, of course Farmville still exists, but I just assume that it's still printing money, like to some degree.
I don't think I've ever played Farmville.
I've never played Farmville. I can tell you Lenska played Farmville.
on Facebook.
She didn't. No. She played something else, but it's very similar to Farmville.
Yeah, I feel like there were so many games that were similar to Farmville that just cropped out. It's sort of like you've got Candy Crush on iPhone, but there's so many other Match 3 games that are very similar to it. So
that's dead. Can you believe it?
Pour one out. End of an era. Just quickly, new games coming to Game Pass soon. We've got Double Fine's Brutal Legend coming to console, which I've actually never played. So
I've also never played it.
Yeah, I should play that. Coming to Android, because so Android in this case means xCloud, obviously.
Yeah.
So coming to Android and console is Doom Eternal on October 1st, which is already passed. So
that is pretty massive.
A game that I thought was already on Game Pass, but Forza Motorsport 7 is coming to Android, console, and PC. I honestly thought that was on Game Pass already.
There are actually a couple of exceptions to the first party
rule, yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, so I can tell you, okay, it's not first party, but I know, for example, Cuphead is just not on Game Pass. Which
it's not owned by Microsoft.
Makes no sense.
That's the difference.
I know, but to me, it's such a weird thing because like I so closely associate that game to Xbox. Maybe just because that's where it's been shown, whatever. And I think I could be wrong, but I don't. Sunset Overdrive might be on now. I don't think it was for a long time.
It is because
is it?
Yeah, for a while. The IP was owned by Microsoft, but now it's reverted back to Insomniac. But I think there's some deal. And it's on Game Pass, yeah.
Quantum Break, I don't think is there. Because that's a game I'd actually like to play. And
Quantum Break is on Game Pass. It definitely is, yeah.
I must check. Maybe
Microsoft owns that IP, yeah.
But maybe it's console only, because I've just never seen it on my library.
There's a lot that is only on console.
Yeah,
so there's a difference there. Yeah, especially when it comes to exclusive content. But I definitely know Quantum Break is on there for console at least.
Okay. Well, do you know that, so for the longest time, Xbox Game Pass on PC has been in beta. So locally, it's been 50 Rand a month. And I've just at the back of my mind been thinking like, well, when it comes out of beta, it's probably going to jump to 150 Rand or so. Yeah. It's not. It's 100 Rand a month. It's coming out of beta. And that's still like, it's a steal. Even at 150 Rand, like it's a no-brainer.
I think 150 is what Ultimate costs.
Ultimate
locally.
Is, yeah.
Yeah.
100 Rand a month for like, for example, Doom Eternal. That's just like, it's insane. So,
no, it's still mad value, like crazy good value. So last two games coming to Game Pass. Iconfell, that one we spoke about earlier, and one coming to PC, Drake Hollow. It's a new sort of like survival game from the developers of The Flame and the Flood. It looks pretty cool.
Ah, okay. That's
Yeah,
cool. I enjoyed
it's-
The Flame in the Flood. It's a
Yeah,
good
it's
game.
something we could play co-op. Maybe it looks like a lot of
Nice.
fun.
Cop.
Yeah, there's
Cool.
not much else news-wise
I
that's
mean,
super interesting.
yeah,
Torchlight
we've
3 is
got
coming out officially at the end of October.
cool. I enjoyed Torchlight too. I know.
EA Play is being added to Xbox Game Pass on the 10th of November. That will be for console first. It will come to the PC Games Pass as well eventually.
But that's still pretty insane value just being added for no extra cost.
Yeah.
I know that a whole lot of media got hands-on with Xbox Series X. And the impressions have been very positive thus far.
Yes.
But now people are like, "Hey, Sony, like, when are you showing us your console? Like, when are you letting people actually play with your console?"
Yeah, so Sony's
just,
communication around new consoles is starting to get on my nerves a little bit.
So it's so bad, and look, we've beat this horse to death many times, but it's a thing of like Sony are making all the wrong moves. It feels like, and Xbox are just like every time they're in the news, it's like a positive thing. Like, wow, can you believe this? Xbox are like, yay, Play is being added to Xbox Game Pass. Backwards compatibility. Here's the Xbox Series X and early impressions. Like, it just feels like they're getting their whole PR angle very right at the start of this generation.
Yeah, they've drip fed information so that it's always like at the top of your mind, like, oh, Series X this, Series X that. So, I mean, what media got to show off wasn't like they don't have any next gen games yet because obviously those are still currently in development. But like, just showing the loading time differences and how seamless backwards compatibility works and like the main menu of the console, stuff like that, stuff that still don't really know, even from Sony's perspective, we still don't know what games are like backwards compatible, how they work. All we keep hearing about is like this incompatibility with saves, like Dirt 5 and Yakuza Like a Dragon.
It's just a disaster.
Both of them offer next gen, free PS4 to PS5 upgrades, but you cannot bring your save. Even Spider-Man Remaster, Miles Morales supports a save transfer from PS4 to PS5, but the Spider-Man Remaster doesn't. It's like, why?
Just
like
because, man.
I just want Sony to explain why. What is the problem? Like, what is the limitation here that seemingly they are running into and other developers are running into? Whereas Microsoft is just like, yeah, it works. Like, you had this game on Xbox, just works. Like, that's it. So
I don't know, man.
It's
PlayStation
a weird
playing
time.
games at you.
But again, in a week, it could completely change because it just takes them, dropping some information that completely clears up the situation. And then we, next week we're talking about, oh yeah, and it's actually fine, but they just aren't communicating in a manner that allows people to have those conversations, and it's just annoying. So,
just pain.
Should
Okay,
we get to
I think
questions?
That's news, though. Yeah.